Hi, I just wanted to welcome you back for another how-to guide video. This time we're going to look at how to calculate the mean absolute deviation, building off of the subgroup sample tabs that we made in the last video. So remember, the mean absolute deviation, or the MAD, looks at the idea of kind of what's the average variation within our data, looking at an entire group of data related to the mean. So to do that on a spreadsheet, and I'm going to go through this process a couple different times on the sample one, as well as on the subgroups. So to do that, once I have everything in my data set calculated, sorted out all of this, let's say I wanted to, for this column J here, I wanted to find the mean absolute deviation. What I need to do is to actually program a function that finds the absolute difference from the measurement included in this in relationship to the mean itself. So what we need to do is actually insert a tab a column just to the right of this, and I'm big on titling that the MAD, and sometimes I even do like the MAD for J to remind me that's going to be the mean absolute deviation for column J here. And then the code that we want to use is we want to use an equal sign abs, which is for absolute value of the difference between, and in this case we're going to use J2 and J dollar sign. And so J dollar, and what dollar sign does is that tells the coding in your spreadsheet to always use the same value over and over. And so our mean is at J37. So that's an important thing. So we're going to say always use J37. So it's going to take, and if you look, it takes this value and it subtracts it from the mean here, and it gives us the difference. And in this case, I don't really love all those decimals, so I'm going to shorten that up, and we'll go to about 3 or 4 decimal places. And then this code is, I like to paste it once or twice just to double check. And I noticed these are all the same, so it's not really helpful. So I just want to paste it here just to see, yeah, the code worked. And so then what I can do is I can paste it into the whole group. So now what I have is these, at the end of the day, these are the absolute deviations, or how far were these values when the answers are responded on the survey form, how far were those in relationship to actual mean. And then the last thing I want to do is, if I want to calculate the mean absolute deviation, is I might come here and add a little header that says MAD, and then underneath it, what I'm going to do is I want to actually find, just like I did here with the averages, I want to find the average of everything in this K column. And so I'm going to find the average of all of these deviations, and when I do that and hit enter, let me double check I had the right code all the way to 35. I did. And I do that, and I can see that the mean absolute deviation for this group of data is about 0.45446. So if I go through, and I want to go through that process again, so I come back over here. This is nice because the data for column L, that data is the last one, so I can just come in here and put in the MAD for L, and that lets me know I'm going to focus on the mean absolute deviation over here. And again, that code is equals ABS, and then now the cell I'm going to use is L2, and I'm going to take away L, and it's dollar sign, and 37 is the mean down at the bottom. And I can just come double check down here. Yep, 37 is. So just like before, I like having everything centrally aligned, and then this time let's go with 4 decimal spots. So we come in here, and if you think about it, well, if the answer is 3, the mean was about 7.54, so the mean absolute deviation is about, that answer is about 4.5 short of what the actual mean was. And then I go through that same process again, program, and I can see the stuff that's closer to 7, like answers like 8, should have a smaller mean absolute deviation because that answer deviated less than other answers from the actual value. And then if I wanted to instead use the words, and if I'm not a big abbreviation person, remind myself that's the mean absolute deviation, and then just underneath that, I'm going to take the average of, and I want to have this whole section here. So I pull up from 35 to 2 and hit enter, and I see the mean absolute deviation is 1.28. So if you think about, I have 2 different mean absolute deviations here, and what it tells me is the deviation on the first column of looking at the mean of that set of values versus the median, that the answers were deviated a little bit more when it came to the median responses on the survey, or that column L. So it tells me that that set of data had a little bit wider range and had a little bit more variance within it. And since this has a smaller mean absolute deviation, then the mean is going to be a little bit more accurate in this case in context. Now, if I want to go through that same process in my subgroups, process is really going to be exactly the same. So to run you through it again, let's just do one column here to the right, and we're going to do the MAD for row J. First column, or excuse me, first cell is absolute value of J2 minus J. And again, that $ is a huge deal. And I look down here and I see that it's J19 is where my mean is. And so I want to have the $sign to tell me to always use that. If you don't have the $sign, none of these will actually work, because the byproduct is it will continue to adjust that number. But the $sign here on the J $19, the $sign actually says always use that cell. So then there we are again, average, and I'm going to pull down if you prefer doing that approach, and there's my mean absolute deviation.